host Colin Birch, and I'm joined today by the lovely Izelke Benecke, who is the founder of the IMPOWRD program. Izelke, how are you doing this morning? And thank you so much for taking the time to join us today to answer a few questions.
Thank you, Colin. Thank you so much. I am doing amazing. It is nice and windy and cold, and we always love embracing the weather elements.
Yeah,
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 thank you. Thank you for having me.
of
It's a
course.
privilege.
We're glad to have you, truly. So I'm just going to jump right in. So what is the IMPOWRD program? Tell us a bit about yourself first off, and then how the IMPOWRD program came about.
So, the IMPOWRD program is basically an embodiment of my own journey through life so far. So yeah, I am a young individual, very passionate about people and the community and serving our community. And yeah, I've basically always wanted to create change in innovative and creative ways. And I initially started with sports psychology and took a bit of a detour there, but really liked the elements of the acceptance and commitment therapy, in a sense of like actively taking accountability for your own life and the responsibility to accept it, but also knowing that you can change it. But in the world that we live in, a lot of the self-help or um, the modalities and principles out there is kind of keeping us stuck in a narrative, in the sense of like disempowering people. So as I said, the IMPOWRD program is an embodiment of my life. It's an expression that has come about, and everything I've done in my own life or applied that has really helped me, I've packaged into one solution, or tried to. Um, and it's basically, in a nutshell, it's embracing whatever wave you are faced, and the wave being, a figurative expression of whatever life throws your way. How can you take this wave and surf it? So how can you empower yourself to make sure that you're actually surfing the wave? Whether halfway you maybe get tumbled, maybe you suck down a little bit, it's just we can't stop the waves from happening, but we have full responsibility to show up just to decide, how do I want to make this count?
Mhm.
So yes, I mean, I've always loved the ocean, and it's always brought me great relief or a sense of safety and freedom. And yeah, the detour has led to the IMPOWRD program.
All right. No, it's very interesting that you would that you took a roundabout route to get there, but it's also organic, the way you've managed to come about it. It's not like you're trying to go out of your way to be something you're not. As you said, it's come about through your own life experience and how you have chosen to handle the things that life has thrown at you. And to what you've said there really reminds me of the importance of the relationship that we have with ourselves, regardless of the things that happen to us in life. The relationship that we have with ourselves, how we are able to process these things is of utter importance. It is so thank you for that. It's a beautiful point to hit on. I just wanted to ask though, more specifically, practically, what does the IMPOWRD program involve?
So it's always run on the principle that you equip and enable yourself to become empowered. So the equip portion of it runs in the form of education. So it's getting yourself in a receptive energy, to being open to receiving information. So it's basically empowering students to make sure that they get into that state of being. So, and then it's usually a transferable skill. So anything where you're actively engaging in the process. So whether it's being creative or whether it's actually surfing or whether it is just walking on the beach or whether it's just swimming. And then it's taking that information that you've given them and it's applying it so that they actually embody and engage in the process. And ultimately, we would hope that they become empowered individuals. Because our curriculum in South Africa and mainstream schools have the biggest portion of students, the education portion runs mainly with the CAPS curriculum. But it's not limited to that. And usually all the children that joins the program has either faced a challenge somewhere along the line, and that's how they end up with me. And we try and look at the challenge as an opportunity for infinite potential, not in a sense that it's the full stop to their little story that's just beginning.
All right, all right. Thank you for that. And that actually leads into my next question, centering around the CAPS curriculum system. And tell me, what exactly are oh sorry, why have you gone about your Empowered program the way that you have? What about the CAPS curriculum um, has made you want to try a different approach?
So it's a bit of a long, short story. But actually, I was diagnosed with dyslexia in grade 10, and I had an extremely hard time in school. And the only way that I could really help myself at least try and get by without um, vulnerably exposing myself in a sense of like saying, I really need help. I think there's a lot of pressure, in kids in school. And, when you're a young adult, you're so afraid to ask for help in a strange way,
Mhm.
So, um, yeah, so I've always turned to the CAPS documents, to the curriculum assessment policy. Nobody loves going through those documents, but I've basically used the documents to um, look at it in a way that what is the bare minimum that I can know to pass, which sounds bizarre because nobody wants to know the bare minimum. But when you're really like at your last resource in terms of like, I have to pass the subject, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I've always looked at that. But then in the middle of my matric year, I went over to the States and I redid my entire senior year there. And the way that they approached their schooling curriculum was to take a portion of a subject and you would do it in its whole, you would look at it at a whole and you would finish it and you would write your exam on that subject. And that really helped me. That helped me a lot because I was able to look at one thing and wrap it up and be done with it. But the CAPS curriculum is very much scattered. So in the way that I look at it in the Empowered program is I try and package it with a Gestalt psychology, with looking at a whole as more than a sum of its parts. So we try and build the whole framework, and then we start, coloring in almost like a scaffolding type of learning. Yeah.
All right, interesting, interesting. So I'm going to take it into a bit more of a, let's say, a bit more of a mellow tone here. But what is it you love most about the work that you do?
I think it's the fact that a lot of solutions out there is very, I want something I can resonate with. So I try and keep it personal, but also relate to my community. And I know the key to that is my own vulnerability and weakness. if I'm brave enough to show that part of myself, I know that everybody at some point faces those emotions within them. We just never talk about it. So what I love most about it is that I always then, instead of, like that old cliche thing where people say, you got to take this pain and you got to make something beautiful. Well, that is true to an extent, but I feel when we overcome something, but we create rather from the perspective that this has allowed me to be more, and then we get creative and we get innovative and we kind of take a different perspective on it, and then it allows it to evolve. So I think I love most about it is that I've always tried to stay as authentic as possible, in a sense that I've looked at my own challenges and weaknesses, but then being able to be creative. So a lot of the resources that I create, or the work that I do, or if I build a workshop or put it together, it's that creativity that can just grow. And I do feel like the creativity can only start to develop once it's informed with everything of the challenge and, the weakness or whatever little roadblock you have in the road.
Okay, okay, I like that. I like that. Two things that I just picked up on while you were talking there. One of them being vulnerability, the importance of the vulnerability. Yes, yes, 100%, right? I mean, that's like the foundational or the cornerstone of a healthy relationship is the ability to be able to be vulnerable. So I can, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense. Um, and what you also mentioned that I really like is the fact that you talk about, yes, we have these experiences that happen to us that can have negative impacts on our lives, but when we are able to create from that, and yes, you said you can use the pain to create, but you can also create from a place of beauty. And that is something that I feel is very important. I don't hear that much or often enough. So thank you for that. I think that's a very valuable point you've just made there. Um, yeah, so
Thank you.
no problem. No. So I wanted to ask you, how can we better equip and empower the newer generations in your mind? How can we go about this in the fast-paced life that we lead?
I think the solution is simplistic yet complex, because I think the most noble thing you can do for humanity is just take accountability for your own path, right? So we're always focusing outward, and we're always looking at, the government and how they're implementing their solutions, and people higher at top, and our friends and our family, and they all play such critical parts in our lives. But at the end of the day, the most noble thing you can do is just take a look inward, right? And it's like, okay, well, if this happened in my life, what can I do? Or what do I need to change in me? Or, how is this, like, again, allowing me to be more, or offering me a different perspective? But I think the complexity of it comes in when the younger generation looks up to us, and even the older generation, is that we all put on this facade of pretending. So we acting like all of this is not here. So I think firstly, it's to actively take accountability for your own path, and to see what can you change within you. Like when you're picking up plastic, maybe figuratively, you've got some plastic in you, and you can also face that while picking up the plastic. So I think it's like taking that accountability and then integrating it in the most simplistic way, like everyday moments. And second of all, I think it's creating community where we come together, and we just, accept each other the way that we are. And then I think a third way would be to offer more solutions where we use budgets like government budgets in smarter ways. So, for example, one counseling session is about 400 Rand, and we know that one counseling session won't solve the problem. But maybe if we offer a group of kids a creative experience, or maybe a bodily experience like taking them surfing or doing an estuary discovery or just a walk on the beach or a hike, maybe within that experience, with a smaller budget, we could actually solve a bigger problem because it's the closest thing to real life versus like just talking one on one. Yeah.
Thank you. I like that. Yeah, I also do believe that experiential teaching is generally or tends to be the most salient and the most promising in terms of, you know, where it can end up. So thank you for that. Three solutions, not just one. I asked you for one, and you gave me three. So good on you. Good on you. Yeah. So talking on the aspect of self-perception, right? The how can we, not just the let's say the younger generations, right, but just us as people, how can anyone improve their self-perception and increase their quality of life in your mind?
So I think it's once again, it's almost like it's going back to simplicity because I think we've made solutions so complex.
Mm.
So before we even get to bettering our perception of ourselves, we've already created this whole like um mountain to get over to actually get there. So I think to start off with, it's trying to just play maybe or use your senses because we are born with our senses and obviously that's the way we experience the world. So I would say if any person could use their senses to um for the betterment of like how I view myself. So for instance, I really love drinking coffee, and for me having my morning coffee and creating a moment of presence is really like, that for me allows me to give automatically from a different place. Um, yeah, and I've recently navigated through a fractured coccyx, and it severely impacted my perception of myself because all of a sudden I wasn't able to really move or do a lot of things, and I had to rely on my senses to, move more towards myself again. And it changed, So for a while, what actually helped me was just watching the sunrise. And yeah, so I think it's like it's just finding little moments in your day because you think it's little, but it's actually big. And then I also think you have to be so careful of what you're feeding yourself every day, because I can go onto my phone and I can scroll on there, and you hear this every single day. But if I'm constantly looking again outward, um, my perception of myself will forever rely on the world, which is very dangerous.
100%, 100%, and it's incredible how malleable your self concept is really, how quickly, as you said, you know, you can have an injury and now you can't do one of the things that you love doing, and all of a sudden it's like, who am I? You know, I don't,
Yeah.
my body doesn't feel right not doing this. It's yeah, it is a very interesting thing. Thank you for that, for your thought-provoking answer. I appreciate that. Um, so on that same point, actually, let's talk about the importance of perception, or yeah, perception shifting, right? Being able to change from a let's say from a negative event happening to, being able to maybe not see it in a positive light, but at least seeing it in a way that doesn't affect you mentally, like negatively. So
Yeah.
let's talk about a bit about the importance of it, and how do you cultivate it in your students?
So I think the first thing is not denying, and it's actually, accepting, because when you deny something, it means that you're already afraid of it. So especially in the water, with a lot of the kids, or like, I'll take something very simplistic, like if a student gets their marks back, right? They never ever want to get that test back, because that number, they're so afraid to actually face that number. But within that number and within reviewing this test actually holds so much information, and we can take that information and we can actually use it constructively. But we don't have to be afraid of it, because it's not bigger than us. We've just made it bigger than us in our own heads. And so I have this saying that I always tell myself, and it's this idea of like, just face your lion. Because if I've already denied, not facing my lion, it means that I've already I've already decided in my mind that I'm not strong enough to get through this. So oftentimes for me, if I look back on challenging times, or in instances where I've really had to shift my perception, um, the times where it's played out for a very long time, I can go back to the exact moment where I was almost like denying the thing that I'm faced with. And it's like, I will not accept you. I'm too scared to look at you. Just go away. And then everything from that moment forward is like, you are trying to protect yourself from this lion. But oftentimes, if you think about it again simplistically, if you would just turn around and face that lion, you know, it might turn around and walk the other way. I mean, not in a jungle setting, but we would hope that. But, if you actually looked at how big is this lion, or where is it going, or yeah, just gathering information so that you can set yourself up, to not maybe make decisions from that fear.
Yeah, very, very important. They not coming from a place of fear, not acting out of a place of fear, 100%. I like the analogy of the lion too, because I mean, it's like you think of a lion and it's this ferocious thing, although they can be real cute if you've ever seen them in
Yeah.
but anyway, big cats. But yeah, what do you call it? You have this image of a lion, this ferocious thing that's that can easily take you out, and then you comparing it to an actual problems in life, you realize that the lion that you were worried about is actually like the size of an ant, but it was magnified in your mind, and now it's the size of a building. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, um, everything you know about a lion has either been told to you, or you watched a video about it, or you've been taught in school, this is what it looks like. But as you say, if you have not actually seen a lion for yourself in real life, you won't know truly, what is it even? What does it really look like? What does it feel like? Is it really the characteristics that they describe on Google? When I look at it, is that what I experience? So yeah, I think it's also like about being careful to not just assume.
Mhm. Fair
Yeah.
enough, yes. As the old saying goes, right? If you assume, you make an ass out of me and you. But yeah,
Yes.
anyway, moving swiftly along. In dealing with trauma, I wanted to ask, what are some of the important things to keep in mind? Specifically, now let's say dealing with some of your students who have had some traumatic experiences. How do you make a or try to create a safer environment for them to open up a bit and allow them to experience more instead of just being shut off?
So I always try, and it starts with me. So I have to actively take care of my own state of being, when I am with them. So I can't bring my stuff into their stuff. So it's about being very clear when I'm with them. I'm fully present with them. I'm not trying to solve their problem. I'm not trying to think, why has this happened to them? I'm just being there, and I'm just picking up on the information, subtle information that I can see, what's happening. How are they interacting with the environment? Are they scared? Are they protecting? Are they defending themselves? So it's firstly, it's about I would say I have to be present, and that takes work from my side. And then secondly, it's just accepting them in whatever way they are. And thirdly, I would say, I think with, when you work with kids and trauma, you have to be very careful to not walk their journey for them. So I can't play a part where I'm just trying to make everything bright and beautiful and just solve the problem, because in that space there is learning for them. So it's more facilitating a safe place where they feel comfortable in expressing who they are authentically within that moment. And then it's about using that expression to help them navigate. So a lot of the times I will reflect back to them what I see in terms of using questions. I think one of the most underrated ways of creating a safe space for children is by asking them questions where they reflect on what they are thinking. Because when you create that mirror effect, they're able to hear it or see it or feel it from a different perspective, in terms of like reflecting. But then I also think, and I'll say this time and time over and over again, if they are engaging in something like music, dancing, creativity, creating creative expression, swimming in water, the ocean, whether we're picking up plastic or whether we are surfing. Surfing is like ranked the highest of everything to change and to deal with trauma, in my opinion. But any of those ways immediately take them outside of their thinking and into a whole another state of being. And the beauty of that is that they're able to overcome in ways without even thinking that they overcome. You just see the results in their little personalities, in their grades in school, how they're interacting in an unknown environment. And then it just speaks for itself.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Again, it's beautiful, truly. I do just want to touch on one point that you mentioned, and I think it was the first one that you made about the being present, and being aware. Just being there with them, right? You're not trying to solve the problem or their problems directly. That I find that it's one of the struggles we have interpersonally nowadays is that we're coming from a place of good intention because we want to help people, but a lot of the time we don't know what is best for them, and so for us to tell them what to do or how to act or how to behave, it's not going to be helpful. And so sometimes the most valuable thing you can do for somebody who needs help is just to be there, just be present, just talk to them.
Yes.
You don't need to tell them what to do or anything of that sort. Allow them to use their own inner resources to tackle the problems that they're facing.
Yeah. And it's very important, I think, these days in community work. You have to be so careful with what intention you're bringing forth your solution. I'm not saying that a soup kitchen is wrong, but all I'm saying is that if we forever only doing soup kitchens, then we're really keeping the narrative alive of the victim, and that we have to come in and supply the victim, rather allow the victim to be the victim. But how can we empower the victim or open up their perception to another way, you know? Yeah, so I think it's really important when you offer a solution, especially in community-based work, that, as you say, you don't come from that place of like knowing what's really best for them.
Mm. All right. All right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So here's an interesting one. I wanted to ask you, do you have any practical tips for dealing with anxieties? Any preferred practices or things like that? I know you surf. I know surfing can be anxiety relieving, but other than that.
So I would say anything you can do to interrupt your own mind, because the mind will take you on a whole story of its own based on previous experiences. So I would say anything you can do immediately to interrupt the thought process. So oftentimes for me, I have to 3 deep breaths. If you ask any of the kids I work with, they it's funny because they'll look at me and say, take a breather. But
Um,
yeah, I think the more simplistic, and you can keep that thought interrupting, even if it's like it, standing up and walking for a bit, or um yeah, just any way that you can interrupt the thought process. I found the ways that work easiest is probably moving your body or engaging your body, because that brings you back into your body and not back into your mind. um yeah, if you can walk 5 minutes just there and back. But yeah, breathing is definitely a very powerful tool. Um, yeah, I mean, there's these days, there's so many other ways,
no, fair enough. Yes, they are. I was just curious as to what your preferred practices were for it. So, yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. The 3D breaths. So that okay, yeah. When your children tell you, also, then you then you know maybe you should take a fourth breath. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So, what do you have any future plans for the Empowered program? Any initiatives going forward, partnerships that you'd like to initiate, anything of that sort, just ideas floating around in the noggin?
So I'm actually in the process of writing social stories that I would like, and I've also looked at the CAPS curriculum to, instead of providing resources that's very straightforward, like a summary of the work or verbs used in question setting, rather to bring it forth in the way of a social story, where the kids can either listen to the story and they can act it out, or yeah, some moving the body. I don't want to give too much away, but some way of like engaging your body creatively. Yeah, so I'm working on that. But my big goal, in terms of future plans, would be to have the whole curriculum finished in terms of the resources and have it available. And I would really love to find funding to be able to make this available for any student who would wish to access it. Um, I really think that, we have a lot of resources available, but there's this gap between the everyday student and what the government, would like to implement on scale. Yeah, and then also, we're going to expand the surfing and trying to create a space where that can happen more often as a solution for kids in school. And yeah, that's about it for now. But yeah, I would say in a nutshell, even the social stories, is to find ways we can print that's sustainable. And that is not often that you find those ways in South Africa, at least. So, looking at different ways of like printing, maybe, it's rather on like a more material based printing, but also printing that's inclusive. So, when you look at the group of kids that's got disabilities, normal paper for them is not really that sustainable because you want them to take their messy hands and be able to turn on the page and not necessarily get it all messed up. Yeah,
All
that's what we
right.
have in store.
Sounds exciting. Sounds exciting. I wish you all the best with that endeavor, and sure we'll catch up with you again and to find out what has come to fruition. So yeah. All right.
Yeah, for
Final.
sure. Thank you,
I've
Colin.
no problem at all. Sorry, I have one last question for you. Um,
Sure.
and this one you can feel free to reach to wherever to, if you would wish to. Do you have any special message, any anecdote of any kind that you would like to share to the audience? Any, or let's say some helpful advice or just an inspiring quote of yours, anything of the sort.
I would say all my life, I've always been brought back to the ocean. And the slogan that I have is to make your wave count. And what that basically stands for is that, you know, in this play of life, we have an experience and we can choose to have the surfing experience, and to use the ocean as our playground. But I can't decide I want this wave and I want it to look this way and, I want it to be perfect because I don't have control over that. The same as in life, I don't always have control that I will always just have perfect and beautiful experiences because I have to evolve and grow. And, all of us that are here have come to grow and expand. But when that wave comes, I can surely say, okay, great. I'm going to take this wave. I can't stop it from coming. It's here. This is what I'm faced with. And I'm going to take it with everything that I've got. I'm going to back myself. If I need some more information on how to ride the wave, I'm going to get that information. I'm going to enable myself and I'm going to get up and I'm going to give my best attempt to surf this wave. I might fall down. I might, get sucked under. I might come up and the other waves might keep coming, and I might feel like I'm drowning, but there is something in you that's like, you've got this, and, you can always make your wave count. And even if, you had a tumbling experience, for the other people watching, they there will be someone that will reach out and be like, sure, are you okay? Have you got this? And that's our community. But if you pretending that you're all fine, even when you're almost drowning, nobody's going to be like, sure, do you need a hand today? Or how can I help you?
Nah, he's
So yeah,
fine.
I would.
Jeremy's got it. He's, he's thinking in the background like, no. Yeah.
just just pretending to have a jolly good time.
Mm.
So yeah, if I could say something or give any advice, it's just, don't get in your mind because your mind will will convince you that this is not your wave. Maybe it is your wave, and just make it count.
I love it. Absolutely. No, we got to make it count. We got to
Yeah,
make it count at the end of the day. It also
we
kind of,
have to.
yeah, I'm just reminded also, just a quick little anecdote from my side, reminded of a quote from, I think it was Epictetus, one of these Stoic philosophers, when you're talking about you can't choose how the wave is going to come, how it's going to look, all that. And so the quote is essentially, wishing for things to happen as they do and not as we would wish them to. And I think it's very difficult, but it is very rewarding, I would say, being
It
able
is for
to
sure.
allow things to come and to go, allow them to come into your life without, let's say, like an exaggerated or inflated pride, and allow them to leave without remorse or,
Yes, I love that. Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, on the path, you will find people like yourself and, what you guys do. And essentially, I really believe that we need more people like yourselves bringing good news and innovation and creativity, because if we are forever stuck in like, we have all this weather warnings and storms, and sure enough, I'm not saying that the elements are not that strong, but for sure, we don't need all this fear-induced information. We really need to see, oh my goodness, there's this person and they're using their innovation and creativity and they've solved this problem, and then somebody else sees it and they're like, okay, I actually have permission to do my thing or whatever I want to do. So yeah, I most certainly are very appreciative, of like following the page and then daily seeing solutions, to some of the problems where maybe in my mind I thought, even in my mind, the limitations do come up because we're just human. But then it's so nice to, be scrolling, and it's not like this worthless fear-induced information. It's actually something that serves me.
Wow, thank you so much, Izelke. That was very sweet of you. And yeah, we're trying. We're doing what we can to spread the good news and to shine spotlight on the things that actually promote positivity and joy in people, and hope for the future instead of yeah. Not
Yeah,
even
no,
worth
for sure,
mentioning.
man.
Yeah.
No, not.
But thank you so much, Izelka. Really, truly, I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I wish you all the best with your future endeavors. And again, as I said, I'm sure we'll catch up with you again and we'll have a follow-up interview and see where you are now and what's all changed and all that. So yeah, thank you
Yeah.
everyone who has taken part as well, who's been watching. I hope you enjoyed. And yeah, this is Golden Birch signing off. Have a fantastic day further. Bye.
Thank you.